and welcome to SDVOE Presents Face-to-Face AV with Justin Kennington. That's me, your host, Justin Kennington. I am joined today by star of the silver AV screen. I mean, I know her from all the podcasts I've listened to, and that is Dawn Meade. Dawn, thanks for joining us. Let me
Justin,
tell people
thanks
about
for
you.
having me. Yeah, sure.
Because I didn't yet, I forgot. Dawn is a senior AV architect and project manager for, and let me make sure I get this right, a company in the government and defense vertical. We could tell you more. Is that right, Dawn? Could we tell them more? But under what circumstances?
Yeah, not really. I might have to kill you. So,
well, best guess so far.
There are people for that. So.
That's true. She's not even authorized for that. So why would she tell you? Awesome. Anyway, Dawn and I are going to talk about customer experience, right? It's kind of a broad term, and I think we all have some idea of what we think that it means. But we want to especially tie it to ROI, right? Let's talk. We're getting to the nuts and bolts of why should you bother to give a good customer experience, right? I think we'd all like to hope that everyone who provides us things is going to give us a good experience. Some do and some don't. I was just this morning dealing with not a state agency, but a company employed by a state agency, big bureaucracy I had to deal with. And so I went to one location where they told me, congratulations, you fulfilled all the requirements here. Now you have to run to this other location half an hour away to get what you need. And I said, okay, that's weird because the emails just said I could come here and do it. Well, we can't. Okay, so I drove a half hour away and then got to the address and walked up to the door and it literally said, we've moved. So anyway, that's my long,
the bigger the company
story.
and the higher up in government you go, the more bureaucracy you deal with, and even non-government companies, if they're big enough. Oh yeah, that's a standard story. But
sure.
As you said, I thought I knew what customer experience was. I had most of 20 years as an AV integrator and thought I totally understood customer experience. I was on the marketing and sales end and I got it. I was the one that talked to people and knew what they wanted. And let me tell you, now that I'm an end user, oh boy, it's a whole new side of the industry that you just don't know till you're in it. And you learn a lot real quick.
The shoe is on the other hand, it sounds like, or wherever,
exactly.
Wherever shoes go. So well, then let's dig in there. That's a great starting point. What as you became an end user, what did you learn that you had been missing when it comes to delivering experience?
Well, I think some of the first things that you miss, in my case, it wasn't just going from being an integrator to an end user, but I went from being an integrator in a mom and pop boutique AV company. I think the biggest company I worked for was 25 employees. So small regional mom and pop, family-based companies, to a large Fortune, whatever number, corporation with thousands and thousands of workers and, bureaucracy and processes and different stakeholders. And so just the scale and scope of things, I tell people pretty much the entire AV industry is like a rounding error to some of these people sometimes. Not just my company, but companies of this type, our full industry is their industry's rounding error. So wrapping your brain around that scope and scale is one thing. So, you as an integrator might be very super concerned with this one little aspect of this one little project. But I, as the internal customer, is running 50 or 60 of those projects around the country simultaneously while trying to get them all done before the end of the fiscal year and developing capital plans for next year so that we can do this all again next year. And I don't have time to ask or to answer a simple question that might be something basic like, okay, here's a best practices document. This is how we do things in general, or you've done 30 jobs at this site. You know how we do things in general. Why are you asking me that? Just do it, and so there's an element of that. It becomes, the importance of what we're doing versus, time. And I mean, it's time equity, it's sweat equity. It's knowing we have the ability to take time and speak with you about this. You as an end user or as an integrator, you should have plenty of time to talk to me. Unless you're like an AVISPL higher up, your branch couldn't possibly be doing as many jobs at one time as we are. especially if I have a dedicated project manager, you're my contact at this integrator. So you should have time for me. But I don't necessarily have all the time in the world for you because I've got 50 of you in different parts of the world. So
So
that
what do
was one big eye opener.
you touched on something that I was thinking about, which is the scale. There are different scales of integrator in our industry, obviously, right? They're the very big guys, the AVI SPLs of the world. First SDVOE certified design house, by the way. Congratulations to them. But then there's the mom and pop shop, and then there's the one man, one woman, dynamo integrator. My question to you is, how absolutely necessary is it for your integrator to be, let me say this in a clear way, to be at the same relative scale as your business? Now, let's be clear, there's no AV integrator as large as your company, but let's say your company is very large. Do you have to work with very large integrators, or is there a place for even smaller integrators in what you do?
I would say not at all. I almost, and granted, some of it may be biased because I came from the mom and pop world, but I almost prefer working with the smaller guys because they do give you more attention. They do give you a slightly better level of service, because you might be their big contract of the year, or one of their 3 big customers, versus the dozens that even a single site of an AVI SPL or an AVI Systems or whoever, they might have tons and tons of jobs going on in just a single location. The other thing is, if I'm working with a mom and pop in this region and I know they do good work, their team's going to do good work because I know they do good work. With the larger companies, you're at the mercy of their local branch. And, I'm not going to say any of the big guys suck because they don't, but I can guarantee you every single company on the top 10 list of big guys has at least one branch out there that occasionally sucks. Sorry. And it becomes then a crapshoot. We prefer using bigger guys on one hand because I know I can call my one guy at whichever big company and he can do a quote for me for any location for any of my projects. But I'm also relying on that company and that guy's local people to understand anything or have a clue or be well trained. You might, as an entire entity, be CTS certified, CTSD, back when they had Avixa, what was it, ACE companies, that sort of thing. Those certs are great.
SDVOE certified design house, for example.
SDVOE certified design house, yes. But do you have an SDVOE certified engineer at every location of that company?
Right.
And that's the key, where it's kind of like, you might be better served finding the little guy that takes their education and takes their quality of work seriously than, oh, Jesus, corporate sent us over another big job and I just don't give a damn, and what have you. So, I have a mix currently. We have some projects that we do with the big top, however many on the SCN list. Mm-hmm. And we have some very loyal, very competent local companies and smaller companies that we will work with in sites where we know we have them. Now, that's what hampers me. I've been here in the Maryland area my entire AV career, so I know all the dirty secrets and all the stories and all the people involved in all the little companies. So I can tell you which ones are good, which ones are bad, which ones used to be good and are bad, and vice versa. Because, we don't leave the AV industry. We just change companies. But I don't know all that dirt on the guys on the West Coast or the Gulf Coast or up along the Canadian border in Canada. I don't know all those backstories. And unless I can catch folks like you and other friends at the industry at Infocom and say, hey, what do you know about,
Right.
blah, 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 I won't know those stories. So then it's easier for me to call up my account rep at one of the big guys and say, I know you have an office near. Here's what I need.
Okay. Okay. That's a really interesting trade-off, first of all, between the sort of the benefits that a large company can give you in terms of scale, right? I would have expected an answer like, the big company, we can give you a consistent experience around the world, right? One-stop shopping. You call us and we'll deliver it in California and Mexico and Belgium. But what you're pointing out is that's a theory, and the reality is, things vary with geography, and at some point, going with the small company that you know and trust might be better in one region, and a large company that you know and trust might be better in another region.
Yeah, and adding to that, the past couple of years, if we've learned nothing else between COVID and supply chain and everything else going on, there were trade-offs there. It used to be sometimes it was better working with the smaller guys because where they were too small to have the direct relationship with some manufacturers, they'd have relationships, but not as direct.
Sure.
But they could go to the Almo warehouse, the Stampede, the whoever warehouse and get what they needed by the next day. Whereas the big guys, they generally had their own direct relationships and they may or may not be able to get stuff, but they have the bulk and quantity of ordering and get better pricing. And so, there's a trade-off there. Since COVID, the big companies are like, well, I'm not going to worry about these warehouses. I'm going to worry about my big multi-million-dollar contract with, AVI SPL or whatever, and I'll send them all the TVs or whoever. Yeah. And so in those cases, the economy of scale in ordering puts you higher on the lists when it comes to the supply chain collapse we've seen over the past couple of years. And in the meantime, everyone has emptied out all those nice warehouses from Almo and Stampede and even sometimes, Amazon places. So it's a constantly changing thing, and you have to always assess the risks and benefits of going big versus going small.
But what I'm hearing, back to our theme, is this is ultimately all customer experience stuff, right? Is this a person that I know and trust and does good work? Is this a person that I understand today can get product, in a reasonable time?
Right.
Is this somebody that's easy to work with? These are the questions that you're asking as you decide who to give each of your 50 projects to.
Right. Wow. Exactly. Yeah.
So let's talk about how those integrators can create and maintain a relationship with you over time, right? I mean, you reference, with your history in one region means that just over time you know people, right? So that's part of it. But there's got to be a way for the new kid on the block, whether it's a big integrator in a new region for you, or somebody just pops up a new shop in Maryland in your backyard and wants to come say hello. Once you've started working with them, how do they maintain the experience in a way that you're going to keep coming back to them?
Well, there's a couple things there. First of all, obviously, do good work and do it at a fair price. Don't come in and undercut everybody and then change order us to death. Oh my gosh, my now boss, who's the head of the entire AV section, he used to be a customer of mine when I was an integrator. That's how I got this job. So make friends with your customers. But, that's his biggest pet peeve. We have one or two companies that would come in and they'd give us the lowest price. And, if another company would give us this price, they'd give us this price, mm-hmm. But then they would change order and we get another change order. And then, we didn't add the special lens that you need for that situation. So here's a change order, and those kinds of things, they don't fly. Because with corporate, we got our capital budget. We have X amount allocated to the project. If you say you can do the project for X amount, that's what we got for you. So don't be coming in with change orders and things where we have to go begging to the higher ups in our food chain, or worse, to our program, our customers, both internal and external, and beg for more money, because that just makes us look bad, which makes you look horrible. So that's a big one. Be fair, do good work at a fair price.
I think in that example, you're right back to you just told me you don't have time for all of your integrators, and here what they're doing fundamentally is demanding your time. Because you got to go talk to this stakeholder. You got to go talk to that boss. You got to go talk to this budget committee. And that's all stuff that now they've caused you a problem. That's what's happened.
So, it isn't just a matter of using my time. It's a matter of the time of everybody involved in the project. You talk to me for the statement of work, the bill of materials, what I expect from you, the drawings in a lot of cases, photographs, that sort of thing, because you can't take them in our sites. But you're not going to talk to me for the whole process. You're going to talk to the IT team specific to that site, the facilities team specific to that site. You're going to talk to the program team that's running, the people that are actually going to be using the space internal to our company. And then you're going to be talking to necessarily some of the people that are outside of our company. You might not talk to them, but they're your customer as well. So you've got customers external to my company. You've got customers within a program in my company. You've got the facilities and the IT and the cybersecurity and the AV people all within my company. We're all your customers. And we have an entire bureaucracy of purchasing, both the accounts payables and the accounts billables and the PO process, all of which are different people. Each one of them is a touch point for you or someone in your staff. So they're your customers. And I could think you're a great integrator and you do great work and your price is fair. But if someone in purchasing says, well, they are a pain in the you know what to work with, or they won't agree on our contract terms, or they want this, they want that, or they're bugging us for money every 5 minutes when we told them this is our, check process, that's going to be a bad experience. And we're going to hear back, we really don't want to work with them, or we want to remove them from the bidders list. Then even if you're the greatest integrator on the planet, we're not going to be able to work with you. So the idea that I'm your customer because I'm the one that calls and says, hey, I have a project, get over that. Even if you're a mom and pop, you got to think a lot bigger because there's a whole lot of people involved. And back when I was a marketer, we'd say, touch points. The 0 moment of truth is when you would decide when to buy something. And touch points were how much you researched it, talked about it, learned about it before you made that moment of truth. I'm going to buy it. In this world, we're talking about touch points as people. Okay. And all of your touch points, they're a lot more than you think. You have to impress the AV team. You have to know your cybersecurity stuff. I mean, my God, it's almost 2023. It is at least 10 years, if not 15 years, since we all went to Infocom and saw a big banner that said, AV IT convergence is coming. It came, it went. You should know this crap. The whole fact that there's an SDVOE alliance is a testament to this fact. And yet, do you know how many AV integrators come in and just don't know what you're talking about with ports and protocols? Or if you have questions about your requirements for network access, I mean, it makes me speechless, and I'm the AV guy. God help my cybersecurity team that has to come in and in vertical like mine, cybersecurity team, they're hardcore. You can't even look at them without permission from somebody.
No, I've heard stories about how somebody's argued to me that actually cybersecurity in the corporate environment can be even harder than the defense environment, because in the defense environment, if you plug something into the wrong port, a man with a machine gun arrives immediately and says, "Excuse me, what are you doing at that port?" So they don't need as much. I think they take it very seriously. I was impressed a week or so ago. We did an interview on this show with someone whose job is cybersecurity consultant internal to like a mid-scale AV integrator, and to me that opened my eyes up to say, goodness, finally there are integrators out there who are starting to take this seriously. That the fact that they've got a person who's full-time job.
I'm going to get back to your records and watch that show to say, hey, what company is that?
It was Paul Konikowski, and I'm so sorry that I cannot remember the name of his company. I think I know it, but I don't want to say it wrong. So look up my interview with Paul.
I know Paul. I'll look him up.
Great.
Yeah. I'll get in touch with him, because that's the kind of thing that a company like mine is overjoyed to hear. And even before I joined this company, when I was just an integrator in the greater DC region, cybersecurity was a bigger concern to us than maybe someone in, Iowa. No offense, Iowa. But it's one of those things that becomes, a very key point. So back before I joined this company, I was on a cybersecurity panel, and they talked that defense is one of the top people, but just as stringent or more stringent are like the monetary markets, the banks, the financial, and things like casinos. Anywhere where large volumes of money are going through, their cybersecurity is going to be through the roof.
Right. And they can't send,
as it should be.
They can't send people with machine guns, so that's all they have is the cybersecurity to rest on.
Well, I mean, depending on the casino and the era, maybe, but
that's not a machine gun. That's something a little more discreet. But
I got you.
But we'll get the job done.
Filing case.
All right. What? Darn it! I had a thought in my head.
It'll come back.
What I'm noticing as we talk about this, my first thought was, wow, as you've described providing good customer experience to a very large corporate organization, and you described the complexity of sort of your supply chain is not the word, but of your purchasing and installation chain. I thought, wow, the thing about dealing with a large company like that is you really need to understand their structure, who their people are, and whose job is what, so that you can focus the right experience for each of them. But then it occurred to me that it's just as true if your end customer is small. there won't
Oh
be
yeah.
a separate person for billing and a separate person for paying and a separate person for invoicing and a separate person for project management. It might be just one person, but that means, oh my God, that one person has to do all those things. So again, you better make sure that
Yeah.
experience is
Just
smooth because they really don't have time for you.
yeah, don't piss off Susan because she is the be all and end all of the accounting department. And if you piss her off, she's not going to want to talk to you.
Right.
And so they're not going to hire you, you know. And
That's the end of it.
we've worked for a few companies over the years where they've had a Susan and just don't get on their bad side. I mean, you know, and you're right that you need to understand the complexity of our buying situations and that sort of thing. But I'll go even easier for all the integrators watching or listening. You don't have to know the ins and outs of my corporation or another corporation, big or little. Just know some basic facts. You know, we've had people come in not just to work with us as a vendor, but even people hiring, because I have some hiring managers that sit near me at the office, hearing them talk about it. And they ask questions or don't know basic info. Like you're coming into a place like my company to try to sell me something. If you haven't heard of my company already, take 5 minutes, not even take 2
We have a
minutes
website.
and look at Google before
Check
you
it
walk
out.
in the building. Yeah. Yeah. You don't even have to go to the website. Go to Google. Wiki will tell you, hey, they're in this vertical and cybersecurity is really freaking important. And you can't bring Chinese things in or what, you know, whatever. I mean, you know, it's the same with any company. You have to know what the company does. You have to know what their key motivators are, what their key most important factors are. And if you come in with no clue about ports and protocols to a company like mine or a casino or a bank that's super concerned about cybersecurity, you're going to not get very far versus somebody that did 5 seconds of homework and knows that. You know, if you come in, and here's another example, and I'll get on another soapbox, sorry, but if you come in to meet with my company and I walk in, don't treat me like a secretary. Take 5 minutes to be like, oh shit, Dawn has a CTS and you know an MBA and a IT master's, and you know she's been in the industry for 20 plus years and she knows her shit. So you talk to me as me, and I understand the technology. I worked in the industry, versus just walking in off the street and being like, hey, you know, who's your AV guy? Okay, well, let me talk to him. It might not be him, might be her.
Mm-hmm.
The days of walking into a company where you are the absolute subject matter expert on AV is over. I am certainly not the first, and I will certainly not be the last person hired from the AV industry to be an end user. I can name at least 5 that I sat on a PS&I panel with a few years ago that were all longtime AV people hired from either manufacturers or integrators to work as end users as their internal AV consultants.
Sure.
So when you walk in making assumptions, whether it's because they're a woman or because they're just a corporate customer, if you assume they know nothing and they know a lot, or possibly even more than you, you're not going to make a very good impression.
Right. You won't be.
And
You won't be
we're not
making
going to want to deal
friends.
with you in the future. Precisely.
And like one of my friends says to me, you know what friends do? They put money in other friends' pockets.
Yeah.
In a totally above board
mean,
sort of
it's
way. I
horrible
just
to
mean
say.
doing business. We're not talking about anything under the table. You know, handing it over the top of the table into the pocket.
But that's part of it, though. You know people. Therefore, you build a level of trust. That's how that develops. And people that might have just been a customer or just been a vendor before, over the years become friends. I mentioned it already. Over the years, that customer that you keep in touch with, even if they're not a customer anymore, and you say hey to them every infocom, or you go and have a drink and a dance with them at the, you know, digital projection party or whatever, that person is a key contact. They become a friend. And 10 years down the road, when you're getting a divorce and need a new job in the industry so you can afford to stay in your really expensive state, you can call them up and say, yo, who's hiring? Oh, you are? Oh, I would be delighted to come in and talk about a role, you know?
Just as a
Like,
for
you
example.
just never know. Just as a for example, you know, totally hypothetical. But you know, it's true. We always tell people new to the industry, don't piss anyone off in AV, because you don't get out of it. You just change companies, you change hats. Everybody knows everybody. So even if you just think you're working for a podunk company over here somewhere and you piss them off really badly or burn a bridge there, you don't know who their friend is, who's friend with this person, who's friends with this person over here that you're trying to get work with. I've known people on opposite coasts either submarine themselves or get glowing recommendations because of friends in the industry.
So your company builds submarines? Is that no? Just a joke. It's a joke. We don't know.
Honestly, I don't know if they do or don't.
It's above your pay grade.
Anything's possible. I sell AV. I design AV. That's my role.
Cool, Dawn. I think this has been a great conversation. I think that's a great place to put an end to it. It emphasizes things that we know, right? I mean, it's a people industry. A lot of industries are people industries, right? Make friends, build these relationships, right. and focus on being flexible and giving people what they need. And it turns out they'll call you back, and that's really what success is about.
Yeah, I know, and I know you're wrapping up, but I got to share.
Share it. Don't wrap it. Cut the edit, Brooke. We're not wrapping.
Yeah. You said it though, exactly. You want to give people what they need, and sometimes they know what they need, sometimes they don't. You know, they don't all have a Dawn or whoever working for them, but you do know what they need for a specific space. If you've been in this industry more than 5 minutes, and here's a classic example: we had an auditorium that raked seating just like a movie theater, seated 300, 400 people, used to have a giant, something ridiculous like 25-foot screen, some just like ridiculous huge screen that would drop down. Well, originally it had a rear projection video system behind the screen with a giant glass rear screen wall. When that projector went up, they brought in a different vendor because lowest bid. That vendor didn't want to or couldn't fix or replace the projector behind it, so they just covered up that nice rear screen room with a drop-down screen that was giant. Several years later, that motor in that drop-down screen broke. And instead of coming out, it was yet another company, because you get to put bid process. Instead of getting a company to come out and replace that motor or talk to the manufacturer or something like that, some salesman saw an opportunity and they said, you need a video wall. This space needs a video wall, which as an AV person, I don't disagree with. The space could use a video wall. But what they sold us, and by us, I mean them because I wasn't working here then, they sold them 9 50, 60-inch TVs with a nice wide bezel, and then all kinds of gazintas and gazaltas for a giant matrix switcher for a space that only does presentations from one in-room computer because it's in a closed area. And by the way, we're a PowerPoint house, so most of our presentations are just big slides full of text because nobody got the memo on how to do a nice PowerPoint with pictures. And those great big wide bezels,
they're always
entire
right
lines
in
of text.
that line of text, aren't they?
In the bezel. And even if they weren't right in that bezel, the size of that room versus those 9 little screens, you can't see it from the 5th row, let alone the back of the room. That integrator, surprise, surprise, is blacklisted at my company, but sell us what you need. The guy that came out to talk to them had been in the industry long enough to know that's not a video wall appropriate to that space. If he didn't know that fact, he needs to go back to Avixa, go back to whoever and learn a little more. But, give us what we need. Don't give us what you have a spiff on. Yeah. Don't give us what you have 12 of in the warehouse and you need to get rid of them. I mean, as a former integrator, there's a place for that, but
bring it up. Yeah, I'm a cheapskate. I'll say, what I really need is one of those $5 million, giant LED video walls. But what do you have in the warehouse that you need to get rid of? Because I'll have that conversation, but do it that way.
We can adjust. Exactly. Or, those 9 little monitors, we certainly couldn't use them in this giant auditorium, but we have 3 other buildings that need digital signage down long hallways that those would be perfect for. Discuss it with us and we'll have a spot for it if you're working for a big enough company. But by just doing that, you're alienating us and actually making us laugh at you and bring you up in presentations like this in my Infocom class where we had pictures.
Oh, good.
So yeah, we don't name names, but like that's so
check
important.
The show notes.
Don't piss people off. Yeah, don't piss people off, and just make sure you're giving us what we need and what is appropriate for our space. And if you don't know what that is, figure it out. Google, learn
Yeah.
about that vertical. Is that vertical
Ask.
HIPAA? Does it have HIPAA requirements?
You know what? If you've gotten into the room, and this is I've got my own, sales guys here and there, and to me the difference between the really good ones and the bad ones is the bad sales guys go in there and just start telling you about our products and what they do and how it's going to help you. The good ones go in there and say, "What do you need?" And then listen.
Not even what do you need. Not even what do you need, because sometimes
Sure.
you'll get a customer that
I didn't say I was a good sales
guy.
They
saw on,
be clear.
But more important than what they need, what do you plan to do
Yeah.
here? What is your intent for this space? What do you want to get out of it? Give me a goal. And I don't care about your equipment. I've said this on Aviation for a long time now. Nobody cares about your gray boxes. Nobody cares about your gray boxes. Sorry, SDVOE. Nobody cares about your chipset.
I'm good with that.
We care about this communication or this end product or this deliverable that we're going to be able to use with our customers. And if your chipset or your gray box is what does that for us, fabulous. We'll buy 1,000 of them. But that's the important thing. And by not paying attention to that, I mean, you lose a lot of valuable sales, but you also lose a lot of respect from potential customers or potential repeat customers that aren't. Don't go to a hospital emergency but don't go to a hospital surgery suite that's looking for displays for their robot surgery, because they do that now, and sell them ones that aren't, in protective enclosures or bio-proof. There are like actually products out there designed for that. Don't go to a military thing for people overseas and sell them things that aren't ruggedized. Don't go to a kindergarten and sell them displays that, can't be cleaned off with a cloth when they're coloring with their crayon.
But you said that about the surgical displays
Just figure
already.
out who you're talking to. And, yeah, well, but
I have little kids. All my TVs are blood splatter proof. I got them on sale at a hospital.
Yeah.
It's a joke. I didn't really.
Yeah, if the product's not that way already, there's plenty of companies that sell enclosures that make them that way. You know what I mean? Just know who your customer is. And
what I'm thinking about is you talk about, give people what they need. I think what we need to remember, and the theme here in customer experience, is it's giving them the AV equipment that they need should be the easy part for all of us, right? But what about all those other things? What about give them an easy purchasing experience? What about give them the stuff that they need when they need it? What about give them clear communication and be available to their project manager? Those are the things they need that I think are going to separate, any old CTS who knows that nine TVs was not good enough for that room from the one who's going to be really successful and get the repeat business from the big and the small customers.
Yeah. I was at a regional tech council conference a few years ago, and one of the other attendees was the CEO of a computer programming company or chip manufacturer. I don't even know what they did. But he said, when you're hiring, man, don't hire for what we do. We know our technology. We can teach you that we're good at that. So we can show you how to do that. You want to hire people that have the soft skills, the communication skills, the ability to write, the ability to read, the ability to talk, to interface with people, to understand the nuance of what someone's saying. And, if they say, well, I want to be able to do that, understand that, by that, this end user means this technology, or they're referring to something, I want to do that Tupac thing. Okay, they're looking for like the holograph screens like Art Media has, or whatever the case may be. It's don't hire for what you know, because you know it. Yeah. You can teach that. Find the soft skills. Don't be afraid of liberal arts majors. Hey, my undergrad was English and
That's
dance.
it. You're off my show.
I eventually got some masters. I went back and got masters in the industry certs that mean things in our industry, but yeah, I came into this as a nice liberal arts grad.
Well, you've finally seen the path, I suppose. That's great. Dawn, this was a lot of fun, just as I knew it would be. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for watching. We do this show every week now, so make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, and you'll get notified of new shows. So with a final thanks to Dawn, we say thank you and good night.